So the new Ninja Turtles movie, TMNT Mutant Mayhem, is hitting theaters this weekend, and I am a totally normal amount of excited about it.
Let's fucking go!
And it got me thinking that in my quest to prove that everything is wrestling, why shouldn't I talk about a franchise that's been with me my entire life? A franchise that really helped define me as a person. Today, we're gonna talk about how everything's wrestling, including the Ninja Turtles.
Didn't we see these guys on WrestleMania?
The TMNT are a cultural touchstone for anybody born in the 80s and 90s. I mean, the TV shows and movies I watched, Ninja Turtles, the video games I played at home and in the arcades, Ninja Turtles, the toys I played with till I was... The toys I still play with, Ninja Turtles. And clearly I'm not alone, as every couple of years the franchise gets a new reboot, a new reinvention, updating it for a modern audience, with Mutant Mayhem being the latest iteration in the franchise. Now, for those of you uninitiated, let me quickly explain the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to you. And look, this is going to sound like complete and total bullshit, but I guarantee you it is 110% true. It all starts with this stuff called ooze, an extremely powerful mutagen that somehow finds its way into the sewers of New York City, where it cracks and releases this mutagen all over 4 baby turtles, and also either a rat or a human man named Hamato Yoshi that lives in the sewers. It kind of changes depending on which version you're watching. And as the old saying goes, mutagen's gonna mutagenate. Mutate, whatever. And in the old 80s cartoons, it would mutate you into whatever you came into contact with last. And the turtles, of course, most recently coming into contact with Hamato Yoshi, would slowly mutate into these anthropomorphic, humanoid, teenage mutant ninja turtles. And as for Yoshi, he most recently came into contact with a sewer rat, which transformed Yoshi into the Ninja Turtle sensei and also basically their rat dad, Splinter. And Splinter would go on to name the turtles after his favorite Renaissance painters, Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo.
All the good ones, and you know.
Each one took on the role of a different archetype within the team, with Leonardo playing the role of leader, Raphael being the badass rebellious one, Donatello being the nerdy science whiz, and Michelangelo infamously being a party dude. They would go on to feud with the Shredder, one of Hamato Yoshi's old rivals and the leader of the Foot Clan, a group that was actually named after the hand from Daredevil, because initially all Ninja Turtles was a shot at all of the gritty comics that were coming out in the 80s. It was essentially a parody of Daredevil, Ronin, the New Mutants. It was kind of a send-up of how gritty comics were getting at the time. Now, that's just the basics of TMNT lore for those of you who are uninitiated. I mean, believe me, this iceberg goes much deeper underneath the water and much longer than I have any time to talk about today. I mean, there are aliens, time travel, Vanilla Ice was involved at some point. It's just a lot. It's now time we get into the wrestling side of things. And I think the best way to start things out is by talking about the guy who the Ninja Turtles introduced me to as a kid. The guy who would go on to be one of my favorite wrestlers during my developmental years. And that's none other than Big Daddy Cool himself, Kevin Nash. Now, was it because of Kevin Nash's dominating run as Diesel in the early 90s that I became a fan of him? No. Was it because he was part of the NWO, one of the most influential stables in professional wrestling history? No. Was it Oz? No. The reason I was a big fan of Kevin Nash was because of this guy right here, the Super Shredder. You see, at the end of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze, the best Ninja Turtles movie, I will fight you on that, the Shredder consumes a vial of that mutagenic ooze and turns into this massive, hulking beast known as the Super Shredder, whose bloodlust for the Ninja Turtles leads to him legitimately ending his own life as he pulls down a massive boardwalk onto himself and the Ninja Turtles in a desperate attempt to bring the Turtles down to hell with him. Yes, this is still a kid's movie. It's buck wild. And this version of the Shredder was played by none other than Kevin Nash, and it happened completely on accident. Apparently the actor who was originally slated to play Super Shredder unfortunately passed away, but they already had the costume made, so they needed a 7-foot hulking beast to take his place. And at the exact same time in WCW, Kevin Nash was billed at 7 feet tall. So the producers for the movie came to the show, called out to Kevin Nash, and asked him to be in the movie, and he agreed. So they immediately drug him to a hotel room, did a face cast, and cast him as the Super Shredder. After 6 days of filming and earning more money than he had in his entire first year of wrestling, Kevin Nash's role as the Super Shredder was in the books, and history had been made. But Kevin Nash isn't the only wrestler with cred in the TMNT franchise. The second film in the reboot series, TMNT Out of the Shadows, actually saw the Celtic warrior Sheamus taking on the role of Rocksteady, one of Shredder's great allies and a giant rhinoceros, man. It's weird. He was like a gang member, and then he got turned into a giant rhinoceros. His friend got turned into a warthog. It's just... Ninja Turtles is weird, man, and apparently Rocksteady is just a role destined to be played by a pro wrestler, because in Mutant Madness, he's going to be taken over by the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena, who's going to appear alongside Seth Rogen as our brand new Bebop and Rocksteady. And WWE didn't just cross over with TMNT by letting a few wrestlers appear in the movies, they also released entire lines of toys, series of figures with the Ninja Turtles dressed up as their favorite WWE superstars, which feels shockingly on brand for the franchise. You got to see Leonardo as John Cena, Raphael as Sting, Donatello as The Undertaker, and Michelangelo as Rowdy Roddy Piper. I currently own none of these action figures, but if you have them, slide into my DMs. Let's make a deal, because these are like my two things: Ninja Turtles and WWE. It's a crime I don't own any of the figures, so like, come on, get at me. We'll do what it takes. I don't care. So, quick sidebar. You know Jim Cornette, right? Kind of the professional wrestling equivalent of Alex Jones, a dude who peddles hate and vitriol towards the professional wrestling industry because it gets him more attention and fanfare than just being a normal fucking human being. The guy who really advocates for realism in professional wrestling and derides the boys for killing the business by adopting ridiculous gimmicks and participating in over-the-top gimmick matches. That guy? Well, here he is wrestling a Ninja Turtle. Early 90s professional wrestling loves themselves a good ripoff. There was Arachnaman, there was Leatherface, there was Glacier. Hell, even the Road Warriors are just glorified Mad Max ripoffs. But the Ninja Turtles... oh, the Ninja Turtles are in a league of their own when it comes to professional wrestling ripoffs. I mean, there was Cowabunga, our friend we just talked about, who beat the hell out of Jim Cornette. There was the Toxic Turtles, a tag team that appeared in the early 90s in the WWF. And if you go down to Mexico in IWRG, you'll find Las Tortugas Ninja. Literally just the Ninja Turtles in Spanish, a group that was formed in 2014, and that's actually still going today. And if the concept of a Ninja Turtle themed luchador stable isn't already buck wild enough for you, here's where it gets even crazier. Because one of their first feuds in IWRG was against Los Tortuguillos Caraquetas, a second Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle themed luchador stable, this from AULL. And during the big blow-off match between the two warring Ninja Turtle factions, they got attacked by Los Tortugas Mutants, a third Ninja Turtle themed luchador stable. There was a three-way feud between three different warring Ninja Turtle factions. It's insanity. And according to Wikipedia, the big blow-off of that feud never happened because Los Tortugas Mutants lost their masks in a match against Los Simpsons. Hey everyone, Editor Scotty here. Just because I was trying to find some pictures of Los Simpsons on the internet, and I came across this image of Homero Simpson, Two-Face, one of the evil minions from Despicable Me 2, and I got no idea what the fuck this is. Holy shit, I need to get into Lucha Libre. This is insanity. But you can never take these guys seriously, right? I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, it's fun to have these TMNT knockoffs, and it's great to talk about the goofy triple threat feud between warring Ninja Turtle factions, but I just don't think it's enough for someone to really sink their teeth into. The reason I make Everything is Wrestling is to help introduce people to professional wrestling through things they already like, and I'm sorry, but I think a couple of knockoffs, a few toys, and some wrestler cameos in the movies just isn't really enough to get people interested. You gotta have something for people to sink their teeth into, something of substance, something of depth, real characters that people could become interested in, and I don't know if there's a way to make a group of anthropomorphic fighting animals something that's actually taken seriously in professional wrestling. Meet the Colony. Now, quick bit of backstory here. Ninja Turtles weren't just getting knocked off in professional wrestling, they were also getting knocked off on television, to a point where anthropomorphic fighting animal teenagers was kind of just a full-on genre in the 90s. You had biker mice from Mars, extreme dinosaurs, Battletoads, samurai pizza cats, street sharks, the list goes on. That is the tip of the iceberg. And in Chikara Wrestling, we were gifted the Colony, a group of anthropomorphic ants that were somewhere between the TMNT and Power Rangers on the sliding scale of weird things. And if Chikara were to have a John Cena, as it were, you know, somebody who represented the company, someone you could point to and say, that's the face of Chikara, it's hard to argue that it's anybody other than the Colony. They started out with just Fire Ant and Soldier Ant, but eventually grew to include guys like Worker Ant, and they're all named ants. There's just a bunch of ants in the company. A lot of them are in the Colony. There's some evil ones. We'll get into that, because not only were they the top technicos in the company, they also played on a lot of the tropes from 90s cartoons like TMNT and Street Sharks, etc. For instance, almost every cartoon in the 90s, the hero always had a dark alter ego, kind of like a villain that represented what the hero would be like if they turned bad. Spider-Man had Venom, and then Venom had Carnage. That's weird that happened twice. Darkwing Duck had Negaduck, and in the case of the Colony, they had the Swarm, made up of Deviant, Assailant, and Combatant. They had their own dark mirrors of themselves in Chikara to battle against. In addition, the mid-90s always managed to take things a little too far on the side of things being extreme. See every Rob Liefeld drawing ever. They would mess with formulas and give characters bizarre makeovers and weird storylines, quite simply to put new toys on the shelf to get kids' attention. And in the case of the Colony, we were eventually introduced to the company's big money grab in the form of the Colony Extreme Force, made up of Orbit Adventure Ant, Arctic Rescue Ant, and my personal favorite, Missile Assault Ant. He's my personal favorite because he eventually unmasked himself to reveal his identity as Missile Assault Man. God, Chikara was stupid. And the most over-the-top story of all came when Chikara was forced to literally shutter its doors for an entire year. It went on a year-long hiatus when they were forced to shut down due to the villainous efforts of the Extreme Force, Gekido, and the Flood, attempting to kill Chikara for good. And while the company was on hiatus, Chikara actually released this series of videos on their YouTube channel exploring what their characters were doing doing in the meantime. And Soldier Ant went on a complete hiatus. He disappeared and no one could find him. And Green Ant went on this insane journey of self-discovery where he welcomed their former rival, Assailant, into the colony as the new worker ant, and eventually rechristened himself from Green Ant into Silver Ant, something that I'm sure all of the Power Rangers fans in the audience are all too familiar with. Unfortunately, at Chikara's return event, You Only Live Twice, Soldier Ant returns from that absence only to turn his back on Chikara and the colony when he attacks his brethren and turns Rudo in the process. And as the feud between Soldier Ant and the colony grows, it's slowly revealed that Soldier Ant isn't acting out of his own volition. He has been fully winter soldiered by Deucalion, the leader of the Flood, to fight against his own brothers in the colony and to fight against Chikara. And things continue to boil to a head until finally we get the ultimate battle of the two ants who started the colony. Fire Ant versus Soldier Ant. And during the course of the battle, Jakob Hammermeyer attacks Soldier Ant, accidentally knocking him out while attempting to take out the referee. And this assault completely breaks Soldier Ant free of the brainwashing and free from the shackles of the Flood, allowing him to return to the colony and to return to action once again. And yes, this all sounds absolutely buck wild insane, but it's what happened. And I guess that's one of the key things that I see that has so much crossover between wrestling fans and Ninja Turtle fans. I mean, yes, there are kind of the more surface level comparisons I can make, like how Ninja Turtles and professional wrestling both rose to prominence at roughly the same time. I mean, the first Ninja Turtle comic and the first WrestleMania are only separated by a year when you look at it. And they really became part of the cultural zeitgeist of the 80s and 90s through their existence. But to me, the real thing that connects Ninja Turtles to professional wrestling is that they are just absolutely buck wild, insane concepts to explain to people. Too weird to live, too rare to die type shit. I mean, even the most famous, iconic wrestling storylines of all time are genuinely buck wild to have to explain to people. Oh yeah, there was this dude, right? And he hated his boss so much that he drove this beer truck down to the ring and sprayed his boss and his son and his entire family with beer from the hose. What do you mean beer trucks don't have hoses? Well, there was this undead zombie guy, right? And he commanded this army of druids. And so he ends up kidnapping his boss's daughter. Yeah, the undead zombie has a boss. And he was acting under the presence of a higher power, right? Well, it eventually turns out that the higher power was the boss himself. And so well, yeah, this is the show where dudes fight each other. Yeah. Why? So you know John Cena, right? Yeah, Peacemaker. So he was in a match, right, where he fought the existential demons of his past. He confronted the physical embodiment of his former sins and personal demons, and ultimately ended up beating the living hell out of a pig puppet before being murdered by a clown. Yeah, I'll hold. But the thing is, despite how ludicrous these concepts sound on paper, they're taken completely seriously and earnestly in the world of Ninja Turtles and professional wrestling. I mean, yeah, obviously the Ninja Turtles are gonna fight a sentient brain from another dimension that lives in a weird, giant, naked man robot. That just makes sense. And obviously in professional wrestling, Mick Foley's alter ego, Dude Love, should be interviewing Mick Foley's other alter ego, Mankind, in order to introduce Mick Foley's third alter ego, Cactus Jack, into the WWF for a feud against Triple H. It just makes sense. But the thing is, it really doesn't make sense. It's definitely weird. It's definitely out of the ordinary. And I think that's what makes it so appealing to all of us. Seeing something so outlandish and insane being treated seriously and with respect kind of gave us permission to be a little bit outlandish ourselves. It gave us permission to think outside of the box. And for those of us who grew up thinking we'd never be normal, what up, my fellow neurodivergents? It showed us that it was okay to not be normal, that it was much better for us to be unapologetically ourselves, no matter how fucking weird that person was. It showed us that we had a seat at the table, that we were just as valid as anybody else. It showed us that we deserved to be respected. Ninja Turtles and professional wrestling showed us that there was more than one way to do things. They showed us that we didn't have to follow the same path as everybody else. It showed us that we didn't have to be normal. We didn't have to be Superman or Spider-Man or any of the weird mainstream heroes. We could be weird little turtles with bandanas on, chasing each other around with nunchucks we made out of toilet paper tubes and string. It showed us that there was another path to take, and it didn't matter how different we were. It didn't matter how incredibly balls to the wall buck wild our ideas were, because someone out there would be willing to take those ideas seriously. And it showed us that not all heroes wear capes. Some wear jorts, some come down to the ring in a beer truck, and some heroes are on a half shell. So there it is, my retrospective on the Ninja Turtles in professional wrestling. I do genuinely believe these two things are so interlocked. Like, I don't know. I honestly think the Venn diagram of Ninja Turtle fans and wrestling fans is a circle. Like, I don't think there's any difference, but hey, maybe I converted a few Ninja Turtle fans today into liking professional wrestling, or maybe I converted some professional wrestling fans into liking Ninja Turtles. Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know your favorite Ninja Turtle moments throughout history, or simply argue with me that any of the other movies are better than Secret of the Ooze, because you're incorrect, but I'm more than willing to correct you down there. The film ends with Vanilla Ice. Donatello has an existential crisis. They feed the villains donuts. Vanilla Ice shows up. Super Shredder, the Ninja Turtles almost die. Splinter makes another fight. It's the best movie in the franchise, I bar none. Nothing's got, even Mutant Mayhem. Can't wait to see it. It's not gonna beat Secret of the Ooze, I'm just saying. But hey, let me know about that in the comments below, and of course make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do whatever the YouTube algorithm wants you to do this week. And if you'd like to support us, head over to patreon.com/fightboyshow. We've got exclusive content on there, and of course access to our Discord, where you can hang out, watch wrestling with us, watch Ninja Turtles with us, or even watch the great food truck race, because that's honestly the main thing we do over there. So support us on Patreon, subscribe here on YouTube, and of course always remember that when you're a fight boy, you're a fight boy for life!